They sacrificed in ancient Rome, they sacrificed black people to the sun god, and it might still be going on today. Look at this statue placed outside of the Colosseums. Gladiators and Christians were sacrificed to this statue. And I quote, Colossus of Nero was a 30 to 37 meter bronze statue commissioned by Emperor Nero in the 1st century CE, located in Rome. It originally depicted Emperor Nero naked, styled as the sun god Sol. This is my next source, the icons. Look at these images of Sol Invictus. In one hand, he holds a sword. In the other, he holds a lamp, just like the Statue of Liberty. Now let's go to your right. This is another image of Sol Invictus. If you look at the crown, there are 7 horns coming from the crown. Now look at the Statue of Liberty. There's 7 horns coming from the crown. Now let's look at another picture of Sol Invictus. Now let's read this text below. Christ, the Son of Righteousness. Look to your right. Count how many light beams are coming from Christ's head. There are 7. The Romans did not worship Christ as the historical figure that he was. They worshipped him as the God of the sun, Sol Invictus. Now, I made a statement that black people were being sacrificed to this god in Rome. This is my next source, the conquest of a continent. And I quote, similar conditions exist in South Italy, where there is a substantial Negroid element, probably descendants from Negroid slaves introduced by the Romans from Africa some 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago was Hannibal Barca and his army. This is my next source, the African Abroad. And I quote, Hannibal, Hamilcar, Ashibal, etc., the great Carthaginian generals were kinky-headed Negroes. That Carthage itself was a Negro city. This is my next source, slavery. And I quote, the Romans started their gladiatorial shows in 264 BC, at the time of the First Punic War. Human sacrifice, known as the Munus, became a festival enjoyed by the whole population. The First Punic War were the Carthaginians, who were called Negro. The Munus is another word for duty. It was their duty to be a sacrifice for this god. This is my next source, the Roman Empire. Look at this black boy by Scipio Africanus. This black boy is a Carthaginian slave. He is black. They're going to watch other Carthaginian slaves be sacrificed. This is my next source, the ancient city, life in classical Athens and Rome. Look at these black gladiators.
Alright, Shalom. First of all, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushua, Ba'ashim Kakadash. Honest apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to all the brothers and the few sisters out there. Unto like foreigners from the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Shalom in the Hebrew, which means peace. And there's a lot of good information that he made mention of and some misinformation. I'm talking about the latter end of that information when he said, Africanus? No. I gotta go. No, well, let me go back into it. I mean, this one right here.
Whole population. The First Punic War were the Carthaginians, who were called Negro. The Munus is another word for duty. It was their duty to be a sacrifice for this god. This is my next source, the Roman Empire. Look at this black boy by Scipio Africanus. This black boy is a Carthaginian slave. He is black.
All right, so that's prior to what's his face? That's prior to Nero and everything like that. So he has it's a timeline that's kind of throws it off. Because unlike here in America, where color is really the divide, the unspoken thing in the room, Rome wasn't operating as that. It was the Romans and those that was under the Romans, and anybody else that wasn't under them. They were considered to be barbarians and so forth. So it wasn't much of a color thing, because down the line after, what's the dynasty called again? I didn't think I was going to be talking about this, but Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian, the Flavian dynasty. After that dynasty, the rulers became darker. I'll just say it like that. So it wasn't necessarily a colored thing back then, but they hated um, the Israelites, all right, which at that time they Judah, Benjamin, Levi. They hated them with a passion. That without a shadow of a doubt, they hated them. But the main thing I wanted to talk about is what he said in the beginning. In the beginning, it was first thing that come in my head, showing that this is Rome, because the brother put Rome 2.0, and that's America, the revival, America, NATO, EU, which NATO and EU is pretty much hand in hand together. Same European Union, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It was an alliance that was made by these European countries that also was under the the umbrella of the power structure of that old Roman Empire, in which that's why I wanted to discuss that too. See if I could spin that back real quick. He made mention of Nero. So after, so Nero was in that cut. So this is it. Don't he look familiar? He looks exactly like the current Nero today. But like the scripture says, there's nothing new under the sun, and that's the point. There's nothing new. This is the exact reason why they wanted to revive the Roman Empire, because under the Roman Empire, the way they had their slaves, Slovakia, the mic. Uh, yeah, the way they had their slaves back then, talking about the Roman Empire, they had branded them, right? So you belong to whoever house you belong to. So, and under the Roman Empire, you had at that time the known world that was ruling that world. So everything that we see today is a revival of that. So there's nothing, absolutely nothing new under the sun. Now we have technology, but the technology that we have is just algorithms, it's mathematical things, and what is it called? Algorithms and and it's another story with P. But probability, probability. So you have now talking idols, idols that seemingly could think on its own, which is just nothing but spirits. Now the Romans, they worship left a whole bunch of different spirits. The Roman gods were the revival of the Greek gods. So they had plenty, and everything about Rome. I did a show on it. I don't feel like looking it up. It was called Geno Loci, something like that. Which Geno Loci was the god of that location. So whatever location, they would always dedicate um, to a particular god for protection and give it. If they didn't know the god that they were representing, it was called the unknown. Going when you read Acts, it speaks of the unknown God. That wasn't by accident, but Paul guided them and told them, like, look, the unknown God that you speak of is the God of Israel, right? So everything is always in a connection. from the different gods, the different celebration. The term, well, the feast goes back to Bacchus. I forgot the Roman equivalent of that. But once again, there's nothing, absolutely nothing new. Ecclesiastes 1 and 9 says, the thing that has been, it is that which shall be. So, which is what? Man. That's the thing that has been. And it was going to be again. And that which is done is that which shall be done. And there's no new thing under the sun. So everything that he was speaking of is nothing new. See, we get caught up in the fact of like the thoughts that comes in a man's mind and the way he moves is unique, special. There's nothing special about it. It's just you're repeating the same thing over again, what we call insanity. And what Esau is showing is that he is insane because they worship the same failed gods, the same failed system that all collapse. All right. The great collapse is everything I just make mention of. All these different gods, all these different religion, all these different everything. History repeats itself, even the same failures. So there's absolutely, there can never be anything new. All right. Because just like man comes back, reincarnation, well, kingdoms reincarnated. That's why when they had created NATO EU, I believe it was 1952, the Treaty of Rome, they called it the Treaty of Rome for a reason. And brother had brought it out at the camp a while back. They said that they felt like Romans that day. That was them reviving, which goes back into Revelation 13 and 11. That's not 11. It says, Revelation 13 and 11. And I beheld another beast came up out of the earth and had two horns like a lamb and spake as a dragon. The two horns represent the political system that they had even back then. And it was called the plebeians and the publicans. The plebeians and the publicans. Those that pretend to be for the people and those that were for the rich. To this day, you've got Democrats and Republicans, right? Same system, same what they call democracy, same weird system. Even the Republic of Rome prior to Caesar, they voted for their leaders, and they only was allowed 3 years, and once to rule. And once those 3 years was over, them and their armies had to be removed out of the territory because it posed a threat until Caesar, which the world knows as Julius Caesar, which is, I believe, is Julius Caesar, decided to say he's going to be a dictator forever and become an emperor. And the rest was history. Out of all the times of Rome's famous rulership was during Caesar's time to Vespasian. Those, Domitian, that whole everything, everybody in between was highly looked upon in history. But then you had the year of the, was it not the year? Sorry, somewhat the era of the five good emperors after Domitian, which is not highly looked upon. But they would, what they would do, they would they'll give the highlights of that as if obviously that was the best part of the Roman Empire, which were Jake, and one of them famous person that was there that time was what's his face? Let me get it real quick. I didn't know I was gonna get into this, but it is what it is. Who cares? Uh, the five good emperors: Nerva, Trajan, uh, Hadrian. Okay, there is Marcus Aurelius, and Antonius Pierce. These were known as the five good emperors, and they also happen to be Jake. This is when this is what they considered, like it says right here, the golden era, the golden age of leadership, the five good emperors. So this is the time when Jake was running things, and it was considered to be the good time. So Caesar and them, it wasn't a good time. All right, it was turmoil under Caesar. That's during the Lord's what? Jerusalem was occupied prior to Caesar. It was part of the territory of Rome because they made a pact with them. This is the Simon Maccabees, I believe. This has been a while, but they made a pact with them, and that pact is if anybody attacked them, Rome would get interest. But through a process of time, and why did they make that pact with Rome? Because of the Greeks. That's what you have the Apocrypha for. That's the hidden history. Okay, we needed the Romans' help to take down the Greeks, but that led to the occupation and the oppression of the Lord's people. Matter of fact, let me get this real quick. I didn't know I was going to get into this, but that's like I said, things of this nature is just a spirit. I'll just say that. Matthew 11. I gotta be up here. Matthew 11 and a matter of fact, it's down here. 12. It says, "From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffered violence, and the violent take it by force," and which was the Roman occupation. When you read uh, Luke, second chapter, speaks of the taxation that Joseph had to pay because he was a descendant of David. So they was being occupied, and prior to that, you had obviously the Great Occupation. You had the Dagamon, which is the Sicaries that had um, assassinated the Roman occupation. I mean, it was the movie I'm thinking of was not that good of a movie, but it still showed you what was going on, which is was the House of Clarence, I believe it was called, and it showed you like the Romans were occupying Jerusalem and they hated the people, so there was always a friction there. And there's, like I said, there's nothing new under the sun. When you read Revelations 12 chapter, it tells you because the Herods, they were puppet leaders, they were usurpers, and it was backed by the Romans. That's history. So Jerusalem did suffer violence, and heaven, kingdom of heaven, is a people before is a place. So the Lord's people was going through a lot, and before Nero, and after Nero, they was continuously going through a lot because that was like the Lord said, the days of vengeance for getting back at Judah, Benjamin, Levi from going off. Remember, the Lord cast out the northern kingdom. All right. So there's nothing new under the sun. It says, going back to this verse 12, it says, and he exerciseth all, Revelation 13 and 12, and he exercised all the power of the first beast. Now, how would he exercise? They made it law. That's why it was called the Treaty of Rome. Exercising, let me go into that word. Exercising real quick is, I don't know how to pronounce it, to make with the name of things made, to produce construction, form, fashion, etc. To be the authors of and cause, to make ready, to prepare, to produce, bear fruit. This is why Latin terms in the judicial system, Latin terms in Latin and Greek terms in medical system, where the English is a predominant language, but yet you need to learn Latin. The construction of the Pentagon, construction of the White House, what's he call that damn thing? The obelisk they have, the Washington Monument, all based upon Egypt, all based upon Roman construction. Okay, that's a form of exercising the language, the sayings, the goings, and the saying at that time in Rome was do what the Romans do. In other words, whatever happens in Rome stays in Rome, right? That's why Paul, when he went, he was getting at the Israelites in Rome because they was being wicked as all hell. So the modern day Rome is America, which so happens that the rats that wear the small hats, they clearly state that Edom, that's in their encyclopedia. Also, to this day, you got rabbis, rabbis, however you want to call it, call America Rome, Babylon the Great in Rome. They call it Edom. But yet today or yesterday, whenever I put this up, a few days ago, the United States of America and Israel merge military intelligence. But we know who's really running the show. But if this place is Rome, which is destined to be destroyed, why would they need aid from this place? All right. It says, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, which is by what? Recognizing the things of that beast. Like if you go into the statue of Nebuchadnezzar that he saw in his vision in his dream when Daniel broke it down to him, the largest stench of an empire was what? The leg down to the foot, which was Rome, which was just straight up Rome. All right. Now we know it's NATO EU, but they exercising and worshiping what the first beasts have done. This is why pedophilia is so openly. Homosexuality is became a law because this is what the Romans were doing. What is it? The slogan in Vegas. What happens in Vegas, stay in Vegas. Well, that's what they got that from. Whatever happens in Rome, do what the Romans do. So they're just exercising the same structure that was Rome. It says, and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. So they had a wound unto death, and it did not go away. The revival, and remember, Rome did revive again after the 4 year of the emperors. After, was it? They say Nero killed himself. They say he was, taken out. However it happened, it caused a civil war to take place. And the victor of that was Vespasian. And after him was his son. And after that son was the brother, which was the Flavian dynasty. Because every other emperor, they were adopted or someone's relative that got the position. Augustus Caesar got it from Julius Caesar, which was his uncle. Tiberius got it from Augustus, which was his stepfather. But they said that Tiberius assassinated someone else to take it. It's elongated history. But everything that's happening is happening because of what? History repeating itself, which is his spirit doing the same thing, but the Lord is building up that spiritual ammo. So when he comes down hard, he's going to destroy them, take them out of the position that they are in, which is a beautiful thing. All right. And one last scripture. Salakia. And well, you know what? Isaiah 34 and 1 says, come here, come near, ye nations, to hear, and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear, and all that therein, the world, and all things that come of it. For the nation is upon all nations, and his fury is upon all their armies. He utterly destroyed them. He have delivered them to the slaughter. They are slain. Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountains shall melt with their blood, and all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved, which we know is a mushroom cloud. Let me see, was the one I was looking for? No, that wasn't this one. Thinking of 54. Yeah, Isaiah 54. Oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't think either. Isaiah Select, yeah. 47. Oh my goodness. It says Isaiah 47 and 1. It said, come down and sit in the dust, which is dust represent confusion. O daughter virgin, O daughter, I said, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Which, when you break down the word Babylon, pretty much it rounds up to confusion, land of confusion, right? Why is places a virgin? Because they never got military attacked. But why is Isaiah sent through the Lord telling them to sit in the ground in their confused state? Because everything that they did was done before. So they're assuming that this new world order that they plan is going to go right accordingly. It says, sit in the ground. There's no throne, O daughter of Babylon. O daughter of the Chaldeans. but thou shalt be no more called late, tender, and delicate. So the elites, despite they have this massive plan, there's no possible way they can rule the world, the current world, because the Lord is about to meet their position, meet their match, and they will not be able to handle that. This whole thing that's happening, like I always go through, was this Daniel second chapter when he's talking about the statue, because every rulership lingers from old empires. And when the Lord comes, he's striking the foot of that statue, and everything that once in the past is going to crumble. This is why I'm not going to read this whole thing. I just wanted to read that part. Revelation, was it 3? All right. Revelation 3, 3 and 12. Him that overcometh, I will make a pillar in the temple of my power, and he shall go no more out. And I will write upon him the, the name of my power, which is in us. Those that overcome will receive the new bodies in the Lord's statutes and commandments, and especially the name of the Lord is going to be within us. But here's the point. It says, in the name of the city of my power, which is New Jerusalem. And why was this is the point? Because it speaks of something new. When you go into the word new in the Greek, it's kainos. And all it does mean is to refresh. So the Lord is going to destroy this current present world. He's going to refresh the world the way it was intended to be, intended to live. All right. So all this stuff that I spoke about in the past, this is why the scripture says, Job, to the point, 18:17, his remembrance shall perish from the earth, and he shall have no name in the street. He shall be driven from light into darkness and chased out of the world. He shall neither have son nor nephew among his people, nor any remaining in his dwellings. And the key is what? No remaining. Because Esau, he has no real history. His history is being a thief. So he takes from others and pretend that it's his history. But guess what? All that shit is going to be wiped away. Nothing of Esau is going to remain in any position. So Yahweh Shem Shai is about to do that's the difference. Everything repeated itself, but this time the Lord is going to execute and finish off what he started. So there's no way around it. All right, there's none. They have the same statues, they worship the same gods, all this different stuff, and still going to lead the same outcome. And then all that hard work that Esau has established for himself is going to be absolutely nothing. So with that being said, shalom to the elect nation Israel. Shalom.